What would make an Emmy Award winner decide to speak openly about their sobriety and even launch a podcast to spotlight other sober voices? Stick around because in this episode, you're going to hear the story behind that bold decision and why it might just inspire you to step more fully into your own sober voice.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Before we dive in, quick reminder. Amplify Sober Voices is happening January 15th, 2026 in Orlando. One of the most powerful things about the sober space right now is how much we can learn from each other and how many opportunities there are to create exciting collaborations. That's exactly what Amplify Sober Voices is about. It's a one-day event where speakers and writers, podcasters, coaches, creators, they all gather to turn their sober story into real impact. And I know you'll forget this by the end of the episode, so no hard feelings if you hit pause. Go to amplifysobervoices.com to grab your ticket and then come back for today's powerful conversation. My guest today is somebody that I've looked up to for some time now, Cat Greenleaf. She's a veteran TV personality, interviewer, storyteller, and now sober advocate. She created Talk Stoop, earned Emmys, interviewed hundreds of guests, and crafted her place in media. But at a turning point in her life, she was let go from that chapter. She moved to Coney Island, leaned into her own sobriety, and began doing recovery work in prisons and communities, especially for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. That work gave birth to Soberness, her podcast where celebrities and creators share what broke them, what saved them, and what still messes with them. Today, we're going to explore what made her decide to speak up, how she built a platform around recovery, and the lessons she's learned in owning her own truth. Kat, thank you so much for agreeing to come on Sober Life Rocks.
Oh my gosh, you kidding me? Thank you for having me. I'm in awe of what you guys do and how much energy you put together. How much? No, goodness gracious! I guess I'm just so nervous being on your podcast. I'm trying to say I love the energy you use to put together your whole organization. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you. So, Kat, one of the things I love to know, oh my gosh, I love your dog. One of the things that I love to know is kind of starting with when you were younger, when you were a kid, what role did alcohol play in your family and how did that sort of evolve into your story?
Zero role. There was no alcohol drunk in our house. People would bring us a bottle of wine for the Hanukkah gift, and it would be there until 10 Hanukkahs from then. So nobody in my family was a drinker, although I have heard that on my mother's side, my great-grandfather used to be quite the party animal. So there was that. But beyond that, it was not used in our house. I had no example. So isn't that odd? My parents still really don't drink, or my sister.
So when were you introduced to alcohol and what happened?
Well, let's see. So there's two answers. No, it is one answer that has evolved over the years as the longer I'm sober, and I just celebrated 12 years on Monday.
Congrats.
But thank God. But the longer I'm sober, the more that has been revealed. I'm really learning about what brought me to this place. So up until recently, I would have told you, well, I was just born an alcoholic and I knew I was going to be one and I knew I'd end up in recovery. And that I maintain is true. I recall this one time it was so weird. I was with my fifth grade class. We were walking through the hall and I heard one teacher ask another teacher how yet the third teacher was feeling because she was in the hospital. So as we walked away, I asked the teacher, what what's wrong with teacher number three? And they said, oh, she's got an ulcer. And I asked what that meant. And they said, well, it's a stressy thing. You might not be able to like eat tomato sauce or drink alcohol afterwards. And I remember thinking in fifth grade, well, what's the point? How could you live a life without drinking alcohol? And I hadn't even had any yet. So I knew it was deep in my bones, but didn't really seek to do anything about it. And then had a few tough things go on a little bit later in my childhood. So by the time I was 12, I started drinking some of that wine that had been left at our house that nobody paid attention to. So because of that, because no one paid attention to the alcohol, I could swipe it without anybody noticing. And my parents used to drink these little, not drink, sorry, have around for parties, these little Lowenbrau beers, but they were small, like,
Mm-hmm.
pocket size. And so my sister and I thought those were really cool.
So I love the childhood experimentation. I started at 8, so I totally get that.
Oh God.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
know.
was
I was
old
an
compared to
overachiever.
you.
But when do you feel like it really sort of turned into a daily habit, and what did that look like for you?
So, okay, gosh, daily habit. Daily habit was later, but well, that's not true, actually. Who am I kidding? I guess by the time I was, living on my own, I probably drank every night. I probably had wine every night, a little bit at first. And then um, there's always, there was always, and I still really believe this, I'm just not drinking anymore, but there's always a reason to have a cocktail. There's always, everything is a party if there's a cocktail involved. So probably at the end of work every day, I started drinking. That would have been 23 years old. Um, I would never want to have a brunch if there wasn't a mimosa served. I would never want to get my hair done unless they served me white wine while I was sitting in the chair. And
It's
so yeah, early
glamorous.
20s. It's
Yeah.
glamorous and everything can be fun if there's a little lube, and that's really what it was. Because truly life is not glamorous all the time. It's monotonous. And uh, who doesn't want something that's a little bit extra?
Yeah. Well, what I want to do now is let's parallel your career path with what was happening with your stress level or glamorous or whatever the things were that kind of brought you along in this drinking. So you started out as a weather reporter, right?
Traffic.
Traffic reporter.
Yes.
Okay. Even better.
I just want to say that traffic and weather are always being confused like they're twins, but they are very different disciplines. And I resent a little bit being profiled that way. Thanks.
I'm so sorry.
I'm teasing. By the way, weather's awesome. I would have loved to have been a meteorologist but I ended up as a traffic reporter because well, here's why. So I had very low self-esteem and didn't think I was smart enough to do news gathering.
Mm.
So, but I wanted to be in the news because I wanted to work every day and I enjoyed the medium of video. And so I turned to traffic because I thought, well, since I'm not all that smart, which by the way, traffic reporters are very smart. I wasn't a particularly good one and I didn't have any sense of direction, but it seemed accessible without having to like know how to be a journalist. So,
That is a life moment. A traffic
but
reporter who has no sense of direction.
no, and in fact, oh God, I used to take my little dog Julio. He was a mini wiener, and he would come. I was airborne, so he would come in the plane with me. And in order to like obfuscate, I made him a character in my traffic reports, and I would report on the line at In-N-Out Burger, or it was nuts. But anyhow, yeah, I made it like a comedy routine. So okay, so I didn't have any self-esteem. Didn't think I was smart enough to do something in the field of journalism. So I began in traffic. But once again, no shade to anyone who does traffic. It was a weird thinking on my part. So then I was in that for a while. And then everyone realized I had no sense of direction. So that's really how it started.
And so following those days, would you go out with the team? Is that where sort of the
Yes.
happy hour drinking and
Yeah. Although I didn't need anyone. I mean, I really enjoyed drinking alone at home. That was my main jam. Um,
mm,
but I also never enjoyed socializing if there wasn't alcohol involved. And, you know,
me too.
really, yeah, I
I'm
couldn't
so socially awkward.
stand.
Yeah.
Same. It's funny, as I was saying earlier about like the longer room recovery, whatever recovery rooms I'm sitting in, like at least once a session, someone's like, I never felt like I belonged. So it's occurred to me, none of us felt like we belonged. So I don't know if
Mhm.
that's an alcoholic thing or if like no people ever think they belong because it seems so common, and there's so many things that are common among us, even though we are
Yes.
all shining individual stars, there are a lot of commonalities there
I will say
between us.
my daughter is the ultimate extrovert. She literally comes alive when other people are around. And so I look at that and I think, she drinks normally, having been raised
Uh,
by me and seeing my whole journey. She's super aware of her drinking, but she just comes alive with other people around. So I don't necessarily think that it is everybody, but I do think that
yeah.
more people are like that than not.
Yes,
And
correct,
we all
correct. And
find ways to deal with it. And for those of us who alcohol became a problem, we were self-medicating, no doubt about it. And I
yes,
looked at
yes,
drinking alone as self-care.
yes. And
Yeah.
you know what? It was, right? It was at the time. So just yesterday, we were talking, the team on my show was talking about how alcohol really was medicinal in the beginning for a lot of us, certainly those of us who were sitting at
Hmm.
this table. And it was important for me to hear her say that because I have to remember, I mean, because I was such a consistent drinker for so many years, I didn't get sober till my early 40s. Alcohol played a lot of good roles in my life, and all I do now is remember the bad.
Hmm.
But in truth, it was a friend for
Hmm.
a long time, and it was a coping skill. Some people were on Prozac, some people were on other things, and that was my way of calming my jangly nerves. Obviously, Prozac would have been a better choice because there's no apologies needed in the morning after Prozac, but it's not the choice they made. So there you go.
I'm just going to detour here for a second because we also learn about addressing some of our own character defects, some of the things that it's just not serving us anymore. But I really honed in when I heard somebody talk about that a character defect is simply a characteristic blown out of proportion. So, for instance, I was like a complete control freak because my life growing up was chaos. And then I,
Mhm.
created chaos everywhere that I went because I didn't have control over my life. So I had to be that kind of control freak. But as I've worked on that over the years, I realized that there are things about that that make me really good at my job and really good at
Yeah,
like my husband relies on me to plan all of our trips because I love that stuff. So I just need
right.
to tailor it back. And I think that there
Yes.
are people who can drink without it being blown out of proportion. And it is that. It
Yeah,
is that social, calming or lubricant or fun factor. Alcohol in itself is not bad. It's the
right,
blown out of proportion piece that got bad for me
right.
and for so many.
I need to take exception with the term you used, character defects. I take
Right.
exception with that whole notion. I don't think we're defective.
Right.
I don't, I mean, listen, I'm very open about the fact that I did go through the 12 steps. I am part of AA, but I am a bad AA. I don't know the steps. I don't remember them. And I don't like the first one. I'm powerless over alcohol. I am not powerless over anything. I, if I was powerless, I wouldn't be sober. So I'm a bad AA, first of all. And second of all, I think it's really, for me, harmful to my well-being if every day I'm saying how powerless and defective I am. So
Mhm.
I choose to do it. I choose to say things differently. Listen, I say plenty of horrible things about myself all day long, but if I generate the labels, it's different. If I have
Yeah.
to take on someone else's label about how defective I am, it does not sit well with this girl.
Yeah. I hear you. And thank you for bringing that up. I have for years, when I went to AA regularly for the first sort of 15 years of my sobriety, and the whole I'm a liar, cheat, and a thief thing just didn't sit with me because I wasn't. I was not those
You stop
things.
telling me I felt
I
that
was
way, right?
extremely high functioning, I mean, so responsible. I raised my kids by myself with no help from my ex-husband. And if you had my life, you would drink like I did too, is what I told myself, right?
Right,
But
yeah,
I wasn't
right.
doing all those things. So yes, some of the language is very um, old school and really not helpful, I think, to who we want to become in these
Yes,
days. Yep.
for me, that is definitely the case.
All right. Thanks for the detour. I want to get back
Sorry.
to your career path. So
Okay,
after traffic, you did get into
right.
news, and then
I do.
walk me through how you got into Talk Stoop, because that was just such a great chapter.
Yes, it was. So what happened there was I was a features reporter at WNBC, and my son was born, and this was a magical thing. A, him being born, but B, this particular day, all the fates lined up. The night before, I had said to my husband, other people do features. Like, it's nothing so unique about features. I got to come up with something that's just mine. He said, sounds good. We went to bed. We woke up in the morning and the idea fully formed with title and all was just waiting for me. I,
Wow.
the idea just showed up. So I went into work that morning and I was, doing Today in New York, the early show I went in to present one of my features and I stood in the newsroom like, listen, guys, I had this idea. Blah, blah, blah. What do you think? Nobody said anything. No one looked up. Nobody said no. Nobody said yes. So because I'd been at the station for a while then, I already had shoot time scheduled with camera people and edit time scheduled. I just started. So well, anyway, so that day I had shoot time scheduled. So I went with my photographer. We chatted all the way to wherever we were going, which happened to be near my house. And I said, oh, listen, two things. A, I want to go by my house because I need to get a sweater. That was the lie. I really wanted to see my kid. And the second thing I wanted to let you know, sir, is that I came up with this idea. Call Talk Stoop. We're going to shoot it on my stoop. He goes, this is a great idea. Who should we talk to first? And at that moment, right there, right, everybody, they know what a good story this is. At that moment that I told him that we were going to be doing this, I'm so sorry. Anyway, do you need me to please close the door? One sec. Yeah, we needed that. Okay. So at that moment, I said, I want to do the show. It's called Talk Stoop. He said, who do you want to interview? And my dear friend, who is an author, happened to be standing on the corner waiting at the crosswalk. And I saw the whole thing. I said, excuse me, come over. We're going to talk to you about writer's block and what you do while you're trying to find inspiration. Because she lived very close, we could go to her house, was my thought, and look at her organizing her spices and vacuuming her shoes or whatever people do when they're trying to push their writer's block. And she didn't even ask me any questions. She said, I will be right there. And she came over and we did that very thing. We talked to her about writer's block. We shot some pictures of her organizing her spices, and Talk Stoop was born. And then from there, the story goes that Tommy Lee from Motley Crue was in a taxi because my pieces were running in the taxi cabs and in the back, the little TV screens in the back cabs.
Hmm.
And Tommy Lee saw it and he called his publicist and said he wanted to be on the show. And that was our first celebrity guest.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It was pretty cool. And then so it was on WNBC for a few years, and then USA Network also picked us up, and they were in the same family, the NBC networks, and that pumped a lot more money into the show, which didn't change really how I did it. It just sort of we traveled some more, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That was sort of it. But anyway,
Production value.
but Yeah, it was really fun. It was great. I had little kids and I wanted to be near them. I've also always been kind of, I wouldn't say I'm agoraphobic. I just feel magnetized toward my house, always, no matter where my house is, no matter what. I just like to be home. So for me, it was very perfect. Now, this is in a pre-Uber world, and a pre-social media world. So things were very different. Big celebrities would get in their black cars after doing the Today Show or Good Morning America, whatever, drive from Manhattan across the East River to Brooklyn, New York. I mean, that is not, nobody thought to do that. You know what I mean? It seems so crazy. Um, Now everyone lives in Brooklyn, and nobody around. But at the time, it wasn't quite
It was not
as,
the
and
hip
now
place.
it's
Yeah.
not a hit, but it's not even that people would do it remotely like we're doing it now if it was now. But then it happened. And very early on, actually, I really only had availability with a cameraman like one day a week. So we had to be very selective about who could come on the show, which is how we ended up having such a high standard for celebrity level. Not that I really cared at the time, but I could only shoot 2 or 3 people a day, so they had to be the biggest names, and that was it. So it was the show was grown very organically, and the choices I made were always based on stuff like that. Um, and then and those factors lined up, and it became a pretty big deal.
And so during all that, tell me about where drinking showed up for you.
Hmm. Yes, I probably drank every few nights at home. Well, definitely after shoots. Um, and then toward the end, or if not the end, later, I was probably drinking. Well, at the end, I was probably drinking much more because I was so unhappy, and uh, I probably drank that away. It was trying to drink that away, but when you're really unhappy, nothing helps.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah.
it certainly made it much worse. So,
Yeah.
and my disquietude was born of, I think, so many things. I was so tired. I worked a million jobs. I worked for the Huffington Post at the time, worked for NBC. I was taking side gigs. It was a lot, and I had two very little kids. And I'm an addict by nature, so I was taking Adderall to wake up in the morning and Ambien to go to sleep at night.
Mm.
And so that's not good either. What that does to your brain chemistry. And then probably drinking whenever I could. And
Yeah.
so I never drank at work, and nothing like that. So toward the end there, I was drinking much more, but the show wasn't like a drinking culture show. That was all me.
Right.
Everyone else was normal, so I certainly can't blame my career for my alcoholism.
No, no. So, okay. I brought that up because I know it kind of foreshadows what happens with soberness. So move me through now getting sober and to what happened next.
Okay. Well, Margie, about 12 years ago today. So what happened? Well, let me just say that I always knew I was going to end up in recovery. There was no way to be as bad of a drinker as I was and keep it going forever and ever. But I kept it going so as long as I could, 42 years old. So, yeah, 42 years old. So, God, when I think back on like everybody else had stopped partying like rock stars and I never did, right? So at 42
Hmm.
years old, should not be behaving the way I was behaving.
Hmm.
Anyway, so I always knew that was coming. And then this one weekend, my husband and my older son were out of town, and I had my little guy with me. He must have been one something. And I just knew that this is my last weekend of drinking. So I drank my face off all day one Saturday. Nanny came, gave her the baby.
Yeah.
Go to this wedding, and a really nice couple of men sat down next to me, and the skinnier punk rock looking one with tattoos under his dress shirt ordered a seltzer. And I just knew what that meant. So I turned to him and said, I'm thinking of getting sober. And he's like, well, let me tell you everything. And he did. And we became very good
Mm.
friends. And I stopped drinking.
Mm.
And yeah, so that happened. And in the beginning, I talk about like needing to be efficient. I thought you had to do the 12 steps. So this is why, by the way, I don't mind when people talk about AA because I wish someone had really been straight up with me about what it was about. Like, I didn't know you didn't have to do them all at once in order so you could be a sober person. That's how little I knew about sobriety.
Right.
So anyway, I did that. I
And it was the
thank
only
God.
thing available back then.
Right,
It was a
right. But if
different
no one was
world.
talking about it, like, how do you ever know?
Right.
So because I had no real information, I contacted my one, thank God, one of my best friends, the least judgmental people, and also we weren't in the same city, and that somehow felt safe also, like there was a remove. But she did the 12 steps with me, and for me, the ninth step was the most important one, the amends.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm pretty good at taking my inventory. That's something I torture myself with all the time. But the apology part was the most liberating part. And so I was so grateful for that. And honestly, when I have a hard thing to do now, I think back to that day. If I could make amends to my parents, and everyone was gracious, by the way, nobody made it hard on me. But
Yeah.
if I could do that, I felt like I really can do anything. And then I'll tell you a nice part of that story too, rewinding. The night before I had my amends call scheduled with my parents and my sister, I was in a wicked mood, wicked. And we were upstate and I was having a shower, just trying to cool myself down. And my kids were started yelling, Mommy, 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 you gotta come here, you gotta hear. So I threw on my robe and I came out frustrated. And there was this unbelievable rainbow, unbroken, powerful, strong.
Mm.
And I took that and sort of the message felt clear to me, like use this strength, use this light. So the next day when I had to call my sister and my parents, I imagined myself kind of holding
Mm.
on to that rainbow.
Wow. You either
And
do a really good job of noticing these things in your life, or you have an incredible higher power who just puts people and things in your life right when you need them.
well, if you like that, hold on, listen to this one. We can go back to whatever, but I'm going to jump ahead of you. That's in the same vein. Okay, so then cut to about 10 years later. I'm going through life. I move out here to Coney Island, where I embarked on a lot of self reflection and discovery, but so much so that I was really starting to drive myself nuts. And one morning, I woke up and by the sound of my own voice, yelling, relief. I just needed relief from it. I wasn't really working.
Mm.
I was home all day long, talking to the ocean about all the crazy stuff in my head, and I just needed relief. So that was in the morning. Later that day, I bring my son to basketball practice where we went every Tuesday and Thursday. And I see a man there who's 65, tall, black guy, gray hair, baseball cap. Never saw him before or since. I started chatting with him. And weirdly, I mentioned that I don't drink. And I don't know why that would have been. I don't really remember the conversation because I never led with it. I never even thought about it. I just sort of like steel trap, stopped thinking about drinking when I stopped drinking so that I wouldn't be tempted to drink. That's how I did it all by myself. I didn't go to AA after 12 steps, nothing. Okay. So I tell this guy, he tells me, and then I say, but if you want to hear something crazy, listen to what happened to me this morning. I woke up and yelled relief. And he said, you know, you should go to AA. And I was like, well, why would I do that? I'm such a successful sober person on my own, not thinking about drinking. And he was like, well, you just told me you woke up screaming and that you don't really talk about drinking. And I think you might find some comfort in community.
Mm.
So I, being a vampire for stories, thought, drunks have great stories. He might be onto something. Allow me to go and sit in. And so I did. I looked up the meeting that the guy with the tattoos at the wedding had told me about here in New York. It's called Perry Street. And so I think it was COVID. So and anyway, I wouldn't leave my house to go to the meeting. Anyway, so thank God it was COVID and I went on Zoom and my whole world changed from
Mm.
that guy, that angel man who told me to log on. And since then, I have a whole community of people, and I'm starting to understand my drinking in such a different way. So that's A. B is started Soberness, the sobriety podcast, and C is I bring recovery meetings into prisons now, which I wouldn't have known how to do before. So that was a pretty fortuitous meeting.
Wow. Well, let's talk about soberness.
Let's do it.
Um, what I want to do before we get into that is all this time you said you had the steel trap around drinking and
Not,
not even
yeah,
talking about it. And, the stigma was real when you and I got
yeah,
sober. Like I got sober 20 years ago. I mean, that was significant. But I really feel like COVID, post-COVID has been this um, breakthrough. Prior to
yeah,
that, you would have some really brave celebrities talk about it from time to time, mostly because
yeah,
they had been so publicly um, obvious about their drinking problems that when they got sober, they were like, "Hey, I'm sober now. Like you can trust me," right? But at least they
yeah, yeah,
did
yeah,
they did break that wall a little bit, but it really didn't become a thing. I don't feel like until after COVID.
yeah.
When
Yes,
did
you're
you
absolutely.
first start speaking about it more publicly than just
Yeah.
your inner circle?
Well, then once I got into Perry Street. So, well, I mean, no, in fact, probably a year ago is really when I started talking about it. So, like,
Mhm.
okay, so before I got in AA, I didn't even think about it. I was the ultimate white
Right.
knuckler. Like, I just was like, you know what will be easier than trying to dive into it would be not thinking about it at all. So I went that route. And by the way, it's funny when new people approach me now, if they're just getting sober um and they talk about, oh, I think maybe I'm a dry drunk because I haven't really been embracing the meetings or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, as long as you're not drinking, if that was the fatal thing, to be it forever. And I don't like the term dry drunk either. But boy, I sound really curmudgeonly, huh? Like the Larry David of sobriety. But
I'm with
I don't
you.
like dry. It's like, oh, because you don't do the work. How do you know what the work is? Their work might be totally different than your work. So let people
Mhm.
get to it when they can, if they can. Don't forget, we were drinking to cover up something very painful. And then we
Mhm.
created a lot of pain in the drinking. So maybe the painful thing is still too intense to get to. So if you don't do the work, you are still not drinking. And that's saving your life and protecting
Yeah.
your family and saving people on the street. And now I have to let the dog back in. So excuse me, just 1 minute. Okay. Whew. All right. Did I answer the question? I don't know.
You did. You did. So about a year ago,
Mm,
you decided to start speaking up more publicly. What happened
yes.
and why?
Well, okay. So, I mean, I barely even speak in meetings. I am not so chatty about this, except that. Well, because of why didn't I ever want to talk about it before was all the shame. Then I got into Perry Street, other people telling their stories. So that seemed pretty good. But then I came up with the idea for the podcast because I was really missing broadcast.
Mhm.
And so, the only thing really going on in my life at that time was sobriety. And so because people were starting to talk about it, I thought it seemed like a good topic. But then I realized I was keeping myself out of it. I was letting everybody else, all the celebrities, do the talking, and I wasn't talking. And that if I was to be good at this job, I needed to share my own story as well. And the result of that for me personally it has accelerated mine. Like everybody else who raises their hand every day in AA knows, when you talk about it, you open up the opportunity to heal faster. And for me, telling certain celebrities, not all of them, but my story, most particularly DMC from Run DMC, Gerald McDaniel is a good friend of the show. And something about the way he received my story and replied to me about it has started my being less ashamed and
Mm.
allowed me to start speaking more about my own story. Again, not my faves, but it does help me. And I think it's only fair if you're asking people to share their stories.
Hmm.
And I talk in prison, sorry. Also, when I'm in prison, I speak there because I don't know why, man, because I'm just most comfortable there in prison.
Well, and honestly, your whole career has been about highlighting others.
Yeah. But
You
you know what
know,
that's about, right? That's a
pff,
deflecting. If I ask you,
completely.
you have to ask me. So
Girl, I've become the master at asking questions in social situations. People think I'm
Yeah.
so interesting because all I do is ask
Yeah.
them questions. And like I walk away, I'm like, I didn't have to say a word. But once in a
Hmm.
while, and I'm just going to be really vulnerable here, once in a while, I get really hurt because nobody asks me questions about me.
Yeah. Nobody asked me either. Yeah. We get what we want and then we decide to be heard about it. That's not fair.
And I'm absolutely part of that problem. And I don't know how to fix it. But here I am a podcast host. You're a podcast host. Like we're naturally
Right.
raised and born
Doing it.
for this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a funny thing, right? Like what to do about it. That's just always, I think we have to realize what powerful question askers we are. And I don't mean powerful like such power, like great questions. I just mean like often and present. So while we're busy doing that, people really don't have the opportunity to. And not everybody knows how. It's not that they're not interested.
Yeah.
So, and as I speak to you, I'm speaking to myself because my husband and I lead every social situation, but nobody even asks how I'm doing. So it's the ultimate catch-22. You want to be the question
It
asker,
is.
people aren't going to ask you questions back. And you don't want to tell your story anyway, right? So it's better.
Just to go on this quick diversion, because I think that this probably speaks to a lot of people who would be listening who feel socially awkward. I know one of the things that I've tried to practice recently is when people say, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking that as they asked a question. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually
Mm-hmm.
trying to go past fine or so or whatever. I'm actually trying to like embed a story in the answer.
Oh, how do they take it?
Great. And then I quickly move on to asking them a question and I keep it on them after that. It is uncomfortable. It is, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to make it a practice. So, Kat, what has it
good.
been like amongst the people who have known you for all of these years as you've become more public? What kind of reactions have you gotten from people in your life?
Very supportive, really lovely. I think everyone, listen, as bad of a drinker as I was, and everybody knew it, I was really, really in a dark place on the way to losing my job and after losing my job. So when I say people are supportive, they are really relieved that I'm out of the depression I was in after losing my job and drinking barely even comes up anymore. A nice piece of feedback I've gotten about doing this show is people say that they think it's important. The people close to me say, wow, you're really doing something important. And that feels awesome. It feels really,
Mhm.
really good. That Talk Stoop was amazing. I loved it. It's a job I know how to do. I would love receiving compliments if people said, oh, that's great, or you're great at it. You live for that kind of thing. But I felt so
Sure.
confident in it, I didn't need the validation so much. With soberness, it is so raw and so not vulnerable, and people are so brave on it that when a third party tells me that it's important work, I'm really grateful that all of that vulnerability isn't in vain.
Mm. Well, that leads me to really like the final big ta-da question, which is for other people who are listening, who, for all the reasons about fear and fear of judgment and shame and all that, who haven't yet felt okay about sharing their own sober story publicly, or even within their, work community or friends group or whatever, like, what would you say to them about what it's been like for you to open up about this?
I would say no pressure to do it if you're not feeling it just yet. There's a lot of comfort in the anonymity of not sharing your story. I don't think you're required when you order a seltzer. You do not have to answer any questions to the person next to you. You do not. So I think you should do whatever feels right and is going to keep you sober. For me, it has dispelled a lot of the shame
Mm.
because, as I mentioned, I spent 6 years sitting here on the beach in my head, not talking to anybody, being so ashamed, like I'm the only person who's ever an alcoholic. I'm the only person who ever got fired from a job. I'm the only person who doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. And, it compounds, right? Just tell yourself these things all day, every day. And so I was able to free myself from that cycle by starting to speak about it. So when you are ready, start small. Start small, go to an AA meeting, tell a close friend, and listen, there is no wrong way to get sober. There is no wrong way to be sober. The most important thing is that you're not hurting yourself and you're not hurting others.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've mentioned before on the show that for me, it was 18 and a half years into my sobriety when I finally started speaking up. And so, either I'm a slow learner or I was just in so much fear, really was the truth.
What
And
has it been for you?
from the time that I started speaking up about it, I literally have felt like my cells rearrange themselves.
Yeah.
I felt this completeness, this coming homeness, this owning my truth, all of my truth and all of my affairs, and just the shoulders dropping of not having to navigate. I go to conferences all the time. I'm a speaker coach, so I go to conferences all the time. And those are like the hotbed of happy hours and after event, parties and all the things, and navigating those things while trying to be subtle about the fact that I'm not drinking, or making sure I have the lime and the cranberry and the seltzer water so I look like I'm drinking. And now I don't have to navigate anything.
Right.
I don't have to navigate anything anymore.
Such a good feeling, right?
It's such a great feeling. It's so much freedom. So I'm with you. Like, if it takes 18 and a half years, it takes 18 and a half years. And I hope that people listening to this feel as though we're in a place where you don't have to wait that long. Wait till you're ready, yes, but it doesn't need to be so fear-driven as I was, because times are different.
Right. If there's anything to teach people, it's, dispel the fear.
Yeah. Where do you see soberness going? What type of voices do you want to bring
Straight to the
forward that
top,
maybe
baby.
are there voices that you want to bring forward that haven't been heard, or is there a vision for where this is going?
Well, I'm not sure if I shared with you that we've expanded our focus for the second season. So we just kicked off our second season. Here's what happened. Toward the end of the first season, we did 40 shows. We traveled 3 times. We had 3 live events. Very proud of what we accomplished from nothing, really. And, I wasn't even on social media before then. And anywho, we're slow and steady, but really growing, and I love it. But I was finding that I wanted to talk to more kinds of people. Here's the thing. I have been sober 12 years, but I don't think about not drinking that much. I don't think about being a sober person that much. Alcohol has stolen so many years of my life, and I am not all that interested in giving it anymore. So I was feeling an uncomfortable relationship to my own show, Soberness, for the end of last season. So I did something this summer that I never thought I'd really pull off. It was like one of these ideas that sounds like a great idea, but I know me, I would just end up on Poshmark all day and not like do anything I'm supposed to be doing. But I really undertook this in earnest. And it was a brand review. And why am I doing this? What do I want out of it? What do I want more than what I want out of it? What do I want people to get out of it? And anyway, through many conversations with close confidants, some what's the word I'm looking for? Consultant type people out there talking to the ocean as I do, Chat GPT, my husband, trying on all different things. And it was a very interesting process. And what I did, and then I was in one of my prisons one night, and the women were reading the book Unf Your Life. Can I say a bad word on this show? Great.
Yes, you can.
Unfuck your life. And they were talking about it. And they really loved it in the prison book club. And I was here on the beach the next day, and the concept that I want to promote came to me, and it's freedom from fuckery. Anybody who has experienced fuckery in their lives, which is everybody, uh, I want to know how you faced it and freed yourself from it, or how you haven't, or whatever the thing is. So, and I felt that way. I don't have to drop sobriety because it's still so interesting to me and in terms of other people's stories. Uh, and so we widened the aperture. I changed the logo and the colors to be more reflective of me. And now we're back with season 2, Soberness, Freedom from Fuckery. And because anything you give up that was hurting your life, you're now sober from it. That's my definition of sobriety. So, and it's too
Yes.
late to change the name. So anyway, so that's where we're at. So we had a live event last Thursday night with E. Jean Carroll,
That's
who
crazy exciting.
so crazy, right? So cool. And so she has freed herself from the ultimate fuckery. And we had the best time. So my show is headquartered at the Algonquin Hotel. And every few months, we do something called the Soberness Story Hour Live at the Algonquin. And we got about 60 people out this last Thursday. And she, at 82 years old, is everything we're going to want to be when we're that age. We came out dancing together. We had so much fun. It was sponsored by Hand on Heart Wine, one of our sweet sponsors, and she and I were chugging non-alcoholic wine out of the bottle. Now she drinks. Yeah, it was really fun. She drinks. Fine by me. She was there to discuss her freedom from fuckery, and so that's the balance we're gonna have. So she was one, but then we had Marky Ramone, who has been sober for 41 years. But then yesterday I had Don Lemon, who is not sober at all, but he's getting over being fired. So, everyone has
Mhm.
their own fire. And then actually earlier in the week, I had Clay Aiken on, and he was freeing himself from, you know, uh, a life of having to stay in the closet or deal with the haters or stuff like that. So, it's a balance.
That's really
That's what I
cool.
say. So we're going more of that, and 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 to continue the caliber of guests we've been getting, I'm really happy with, and to grow it. And listen, I would like for the show to pay for itself. That would be amazing. Right now I have one little teeny business, and I'm using that money to fund the show. What I'd like for
Yes.
that to stop. I'd like for the show to pay for itself, but we'll get there slow and steady.
Yeah. What I love about that is that's into the solution. We all have the stuff. We all have the things, but how do we
Yep.
move through it creatively, confidently, courageously, and become who we ultimately wanted to be in the first place?
Yes, and I also just want to say, we may get through it not courageously, but get through it crawling, like
Mm,
whatever it takes. I, what I love about the show is that, like, I hope I never have anyone who says, I got through my terrible addiction problem by going to the gym and running. Like, no, that to me is not what I'm talking about. I know, and by the way, if that's how you get through it, amazing. I'm just so jealous that I have to make fun of it.
yeah.
But other people. So I'm really half kidding about Poshmark, for example, and this is just occurring to me that this is my whatever works. I am upset about what's going on in our nation right now, and the way I've been calming my nerves is scrolling on Poshmark. I like the colors, I like the patterns, I like to see what details people are using. I want to see if it's snap or a zipper. This is what calms me.
Yeah.
That is my staying sober. I don't care what anybody says. And so I want to celebrate the comeback stories, but not necessarily the ones, but all of them. But it doesn't have to just be like, and I get up every day and eat kale. I hate kale. Kale is fucking disgusting. And I don't know why everybody thinks that it makes them a good person if they just eat kale. So I don't eat kale, and I'm still sober.
Chia seeds is my thing. Not going to do it. They're gross.
Please.
But I think courage is having all those debilitating fears and doing it anyhow.
Doing it anyhow. My
Yeah.
meditation teacher says the key to life is regardless. you do the thing regardless. You love regardless of whether or not the person is being hateful. You give regardless of whether or not you have it to give. You know that, and
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Well, that's mic drop ending if I've ever heard one.
Damn,
Nice.
drop that mic.
Nice. Kat, thank you so much for being with us. And talking to the rest of you, I feel like we just talked about courage. It's the space between silence and speech. It's the space between suffering and healing. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you make mindful choices about your drinking, about how you show up in the world, and know that you matter. You matter no matter what you say or don't say. But speaking up can allow you another piece of healing. And if you've been waiting for permission to share with other people or step forward, consider this your invitation. Think about this. What, what piece of your journey have you kept hidden? And what would change for you if you gave it a voice? Now, if you're drawn to stories like this of bold recovery, authenticity, and deep connection, check out Soberness and Kat's work, because I am a huge fan and I have listened. She does get these celebrities, and it's a little bit like being a fly on the wall of people that you would never have access to. And she does an amazing job. And if
Thank
you're ready to
you. That's
take
so
your,
nice.
you're welcome. And if you're ready to take your own voice further, I hope that you'll join us in person at Amplify Sober Voices on January 15th in Orlando. Orlando does not suck in the middle of winter, so come on down and join us. It's where sober storytellers and creators and leaders are going to come together to learn from each other, to collaborate, and amplify what's possible, because together we can do more. Grab your ticket at amplifysobervoices.com. And finally, if this episode moved you, please subscribe or share it with somebody that you know, or leave a review. You never know who is suffering in silence and needs to hear this message. So until next time, keep showing up, keep revealing your strengths, and keep letting your sober voice be heard. Thank you, Kat.
Thank you so much. This was lovely. Thanks for asking me about myself.
Yes, of course.